Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Koralik with Figure It Out Productions. The following video is part of our Quick Shoot series. Hey guys, it's Adam here, and today we're going to be taking a look at this. This is a Japanese AV Famicom. We will be disassembling it, cleaning it up, restoring it, putting it back together. To be brutally honest with you though, this one doesn't need it. I'm just doing this for you. So if you just care about the guide on how to do all that, you can feel free to skip to this time code because I got a little bit to say before we get to that, but if that's all you care about, feel free. But yeah, so like I said, this is a Japanese AV Famicom. Now I actually got this in Japan. At one time, man, these things were incredibly sought after because they were like the way to play NES games reliably in North America. You know, you would import it and use a cartridge adapter here to play your NES games. And you would have the composite video as well as the top load design, so it was very reliable. In case it wasn't obvious, this is the NES as we know it over here. Japan used a different machine called the Famicom, which had slightly smaller cartridges, but internally it was the same device. Now, when they released the original version of the Famicom back in 1983, they only put RF on it, even though they really, even then, should have had composite. I kind of get it, but it would have been nice. But they never redesigned it throughout its lifespan to have composite. So eventually, towards the end of its lifespan, they did a complete redesign, which is this machine. Now, ironically, when Nintendo America basically did the same thing, they took the NES, which actually did have composite output. They redesigned it because it was not that reliable, and they thought, well, you know, they already have this molding. Why don't we use basically the same molding? But they actually took the composite video off of it and only gave you RF. So the AV Famicom, ironically, is RF only in North America. So stupid design on Nintendo of North America's part. But whatever, this is not that machine, this is the AV Famicom. So yeah, as I mentioned, this one's perfectly working. It's not even in bad shape. So really, this is just a guide for you if you have one and you need a teardown of it. But happy to do it. Happy to have picked it up to show you guys. I paid about 70 bucks for this, and it came with the box and two controllers. I bought it while I was in Japan. At one time, like I said, these things were insanely expensive, and $70 would be a steal. Now, that's not bad. It's just not great. As it turns out, these things are getting way more common over there because a lot of people are buying clone consoles there, and a lot of people are discarding these. So they're actually not that hard to find anymore. They just don't have the kind of value they once did. Importers aren't getting them anymore because of clone consoles and because of, you know, RGB mods and HDMI mods and all that kind of stuff. So the demand that was for AV Famicoms basically no longer exists. It's pretty much just a collector's piece now. But it's a collector's piece, and that means we got to take good care of it. So let's start restoring it. Now, the first step, if you're going to restore yours, is to take this little piece of plastic off. Now, again, it's just a little piece of plastic, so you're going to wash this with soap and water. Odds are it's not very dirty. Mine isn't, but yours could be. After that, you flip it over, and you will notice there are 4 screw points. Now, these screws are not traditional screws. They are what are called a game bit, and that is a special type of screw that Nintendo made, basically. So you will need a special screwdriver in order to open it. Once you have the 4 screws out, it's time to take the lid off, which is pretty easy. Just kind of pick it up, no problem. And then flip it over, and you'll see there's a few things we got to do here. First, there's some plastic buttons down here, which you're going to want to apply some pressure, pinch them like that, and kind of pull the buttons out. No problem, just like that. The same thing goes for this one, which you kind of pinch to the side and then push down, and you'll get out with relative ease. If that one's kind of okay, perfect. See, got this out. And then you'll be left with this part, which is the cartridge mechanism. Now, what you're going to want to do is there's 3 Phillips head screws there that you can see, which is just, you know, traditional regular screwdriver. So what you're going to want to do is pretty obvious. You're just going to want to proceed to remove all 3 of those. So if you'll bear with me for a second, I'll just do this, and then we'll take a look at what it's like to actually disassemble the mechanism for the first time. In case that isn't obvious, I've never actually taken one of these apart, but it's not that hard. It looks pretty basic, but I have taken apart the top loader, so it's not a big deal. All right, so all 3 screws are out. Now you take this out, and then you have the cartridge bay. And below that, you have the 2 spring-loaded doors, which will just pop right up, no problem. So at that point, you're left with multiple plastic pieces. The lid, the 2 buttons, as well as this the slot and the drive, or sorry, the loading bay. So basically all you're going to, as well as this little plastic piece. So at this point what you're going to want to do is take all of these plastic pieces, not this part of the board. You're going to want to take all the plastic pieces and go wash them with soap and water, brushes, all that fun stuff. Get them as clean as possible. It is washed and you can see it is looking improved. I mean, it wasn't really bad to begin with, but there was some dust in there that I was able to get out. And of course, if yours was dustier, then it probably looks even, you know, like amazing now, which is fantastic. So what I'm going to do actually though is kind of an unorthodox step. I'm going to let this dry completely, and then what I'm going to do is retrobrite it. Now, I've done videos on retrobriting. It's basically the process by which you remove yellowing from the plastic. Now, to be honest with you, there really isn't much, if even any, yellowing in this, but it's possible that there is. I honestly don't, see, I don't have one prior to this, so I'm not entirely certain what color it's exactly supposed to be, but retrobriting it will restore it to what it's supposed to actually look like, which could be, it could end up doing nothing. But for that process, I'm going to use this. This is some Salon Care Maximum Lift 40 Volume Cream. Again, I've done videos on this, so I'm not going to do all the details in this one, but basically what's going to happen is once it's dry, I'm going to put it on some like plastic bubble wrap. I'm going to put this like goop all over it and just let it sit out in the sun all damn day. And I'm assuming it'll only need 1 day's worth. Usually, depending on the yellowing, it can take like a whole week to do this. But in this case, I think just 1 day will be good. While we wait for the top to dry and be retrobrited and all that stuff, we will take a look at the bottom. Now, I'm going to give you a close-up shot of this. Ooh, man, it's pretty dusty and gross in there, which actually goes to show you, even though the outside of the console wasn't bad at all, the inside is disgusting. So yeah, we can take care of that, no problem. What we're going to do is we're going to take the board off. Now, in order to do that, looks like there's 3 gold screws here, plus 2 silver ones, which I'm betting you are a different length. And it appears there's 2 silver ones inside there as well. These are all Phillips head screws, so nothing really special required. I've removed the screws. I've actually just loosened the 2 back here, so we're able to lift this up and out, which is no big deal. The screws you can take out, but they might be kind of hard to put back in given how strangely positioned they are, so I'm actually just going to kind of leave them in place. So then we'll have the board, we'll put that off to the side, and then here you are left with a little bit of RF shielding. We take that out. You can actually clean this up if you want with soap and water, and we're down to the plastic base, which again, we're going to clean up with soap and water. So it's been a day, obviously, because I've completed the retrobriting on this part. It looks fine. It looked fine to begin with. Honestly, I don't think retrobriting did much. It might have restored it a little bit, but it really wasn't that yellow to begin with. But, you know, certainly didn't hurt it, which is great. And of course, I washed the bottom now, which looks pretty good. All the dust is out of there. So what we're going to do is put these pieces off to the side and let them continue to dry, as well as this little RF shielding, and bring in the board. Obviously, this is the bulk of the console right here. And there's a few things we can do to definitely improve this. We're going to try and get dust out of it. Now for this, I recommend either using compressed air or something like this. This is the electric duster by DataVac. Basically, you just turn it on and go like this. Yeah, dust clumps everywhere. Now you can also, to try and get some of the dust that the duster did not get, you could use something like a Q-tip here and just kind of, you know, a dry one, just kind of go along the edges here and look at that. I mean, well, I don't know how well it's going to show up on camera, but yeah, you kind of get a sense of it. So I got a lot of dust off of there, which is fantastic. We're also going to tackle some of the ports. The controller ports, I'm basically going to do exactly the same thing. Air duster. There's not really much in there. I'm going to do it with all the ports. Again, not really much in there. And then on the back, where there might actually be some in this area here. Okay, pretty good on the dusting. Now, again, you can go with dry Q-tips over those same areas and make sure you get excess dust off. But there is actually a couple of things we're going to do here to really make sure the odds of the console working are improved. Basically, what we're going to do is clean the cartridge slot. Now, obviously, that's where you put the games. So it's very good to have a clean connection in there so that your games actually work reliably. What I recommend for this is a cartridge cleaning kit. Now, of course, these are, I can't exactly say common anymore. I'm surprised nobody makes retro versions of these, but they don't. So you'd either have to resort to eBay or you just have to come up with an alternative. There's a lot of, you know, cartridge cleaning alternative kits that were made back then, one specifically for the NES or whatever, that are a little bit cheaper. This is a Famicom, so it's a little bit different. In my case, I'll be using one of the actual tools. Alternatively, what you can do is use a junk game, and basically I'll explain the process in a second, but basically what you do with it is you would take some Windex or window lean, depending on where you are in the world, and get it some right here on this thing, wipe it along the edges, and then just kind of fit it into the cartridge slot and go up and down a few times on all. Make sure you're getting all the contact points that you can. And basically what will happen is the liquid will get at the corrosion, pick it up, and then you can wipe it off on your finger here, and look at that crap. So basically you're just, you know, displacing it from there to here, and then from here to your finger, and then you just kind of repeat. And then after you're done with it, you go in with a dryer and make sure to get all the moisture out. Now you're going to want to do this a few times, more than I did, that way you get all the dirt out, and I'm going to continue to do that off camera. If you don't have one of these, what you can do is the cartridge method. Again, I do not recommend this, but it is an alternative. You basically take a junk game, like sports title, something completely worthless to you, and you basically apply Windex or Windolene to the game with a Q-tip, and then you use the cartridge as a cartridge cleaning kit, and then basically repeat what I just did, where you then would take a Q-tip and take the dirt off of the cartridge, and then kind of keep going back around in that circle until you get enough out of there. It's bad for the cartridge, obviously. It's not really that good for the console either. That's why I recommend actual cleaning tools. So don't do that and be like, "Eh, I fucked up my console." It's like, I'm not telling you to do that. That's if you absolutely have to do that. But what you should do is get a cartridge cleaning kit. I finished cleaning the cartridge slot. It was disgusting. I can't believe this thing worked when I got it, honestly, because there was so much crap in there. But whatever, it's gone now. It's clean. Taking another look at it, I just thought it would be kind of worth noting. If you look at the back here, you'll see this piece, which is secured on by a couple of screws, and there's a couple of screws securing this piece. You really don't need to disassemble this unless this piece is horrifically yellowed and you want to fix that. But mine's not, so I'm not going to be doing that. I also think that this part might actually be soldered in behind there, so I'm not really sure. Proceed at your own risk. It's not really necessary to actually take it apart and clean it. The only other thing I can think of that you might want to do is you take the contact point here and take some Windex and a Q-tip and just kind of clean, you know, there a little bit. But beyond that, which I already did, but I can't, you know, beyond that, I think you're basically good to go. So at that point, I would basically just say, you know, let this sit and wait for your plastic casing to dry, and then we'll put the console back together. So the first thing we're going to do is plop the RF shielding back in, which is really easy. It just kind of sits over this spot and that spot right there. And then we take the board and we just kind of sit it in. You can kind of guide it here in the front with the controller ports, and on the back if you want as well. And it really just goes in like very easily, no problem. Now it's time to tighten the screws. Now if you did it the way I did it, there's these two silver screws are still there, so you just go ahead and tighten those. Then there were two other silver screws that you would put here and here on the cartridge slot, as well as the three gold screws. Now these go in a more specific place. They go here on the bottom, and then here on the side, and there on the side, the ones with little silver rings. There's holes here and here, don't put them there. As you can see, this is now back together. So we're gonna put it off to the side, and we're going to bring in the lid because there's a little bit of work to do on this. Not much, easy if you remember taking it apart. So at this point, the first thing you're gonna wanna do is put the loading mechanism back together. So in order to do that, this is the trickiest part, but it's really not hard at all. You have to take these little edges and make sure that, you see this part that's kind of like perforated and standing up? That has to go down in the appropriate direction. So in this case, this one would go on this side right there, and then the other one that has slightly longer a slightly longer rod would go over here, and you just kind of wedge them into place and then hold them like that. Then take your loading tray, the cartridge bay if you will, and just kind of sit it down on that, applying some pressure. And there were, if you recall, there were actually three Phillips screws that are brass. Go ahead and put all three of those into place. Obviously functional, back together. So there was only a couple other pieces here. The first is the power switch. Now basically all you do is just kind of wedge it into this spot on the left, push it in, no problem. Then you take your reset button and you do exactly the same thing over here. Bam, in place. So now what we're going to do is take the lid and we're going to apply it to the console itself. Just sit it right down. And you might have to line up, see the power switch here is down. Make sure your power switch here is down as opposed to being up. And once you do that, you'll sit it in and bam, there you go. Before you seal it up, you can kind of test it. Reset button's working. Power switch is working. So once you've got that confirmed, you turn it over and you take your 4 game bit screws and put those into place. Little thing to note, this one's kind of a pain in the ass because unlike these where you can just kind of apply pressure straight down, this one causes a tilt. So you have to kind of, you know, basically grip it and then do it. It's kind of a pain in the ass, but once you get it in there, it's fine. The last step as far as putting it back together is just that port. Take the little piece of plastic and sit it in there, and bam, you are good to go. Now, obviously, looking really good. Didn't look bad to begin with, but definitely looks improved. Dirt's out of there. And the retro brighting, I think, did actually do a little bit to make it even grayer and nicer. But we're not done. We're going to bring out a nice shiny coat to it. Now, in order to do that, what we're going to do is use this. This is Pledge. This is Orange Pledge. There's Lemon Pledge. There's all kinds of pledges. It's just a moisturizing agent. In some countries, this is known as Pronto, if that helps you. The only thing I've ever been told about Pledge is regards to not using it is there's a version that's moisturizing. Don't use that. It can leave the consoles a little oily. But the process is simple. Basically what you do is you just take it and just kind of spray it on the plastic or spray it on a paper towel, and then you just kind of wipe it around like this and give it a nice shiny coat all over the top, the bottom, the sides, the front, etc. And then basically just kind of let it sit and dry for like 10-15 minutes, and then we'll take a look at it. All right, and there we have it, the final result. It looks really good. Again, you know, it didn't look bad to begin with, and to be honest with you, Pledge doesn't really do much with brighter consoles. It's usually best for dark tone consoles, black consoles, that kind of thing. White consoles, gray consoles, it doesn't bring out the best, but you can kind of see a shinier look, of course, in the red button, if that helps. Now, a couple of things to note. One, sometimes when I'm doing these videos, I mention that if you have like scuff, you know, paint marks or stuff like that, and you can't get it out with soap and water, there is a step you can use. I obviously didn't need to do that in this case, so I didn't bring it up, but I figure I should make a note of it just in case. If you have one of those type of scuff marks that I'm talking about, what you're going to want to do is take this. This is Mr. Clean's Magic Eraser, and you'll use it when the console is disassembled and it's in its plastic form. What you're going to want to do at that point is, you know, get the console wet, get the plastic wet, I'm sorry, and then take Mr. Clean's Magic Eraser and just kind of use it as like a sandpaper, and it'll take the edge off, and then you just kind of brush it, rewash it, and then at the very end you'll put the Pledge on, and it'll basically shine up any sort of buffed plastic, and it'll look really good. But yeah, this is our final result. So now let's go ahead and fire it up. Console's all set up here. Now it's time to test it out. I'm going to be using this game. This is a Japanese exclusive called Four-Wheel Drive Battle Clash. So let's pop it in here and give it a shot. Turn it on. Now it's running through the framemeister, so it's going to take a second before the framemeister figures out what's going on, assuming the thing works, and it should because it was working before. There you go. And first try, no problem. This is a pretty cool racing game, incidentally. Very, very playable. It's in English, as you can see, and very import friendly. Yeah, highly recommend this one. It's actually very fun, too. It's kind of surprising this game never came over here. You know, so I played it for a little while. This is actually kind of surprisingly addictive. Of course, I can't play with one hand like this, but yeah, anyway, you get the point. So yeah, console works great, and hopefully if you have an AV Famicom and you're looking to upgrade it or clean it up and restore it, maybe this was of help to you. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you all later.